All right, guys, behind me right now is the 992 911 Carrera S. I know last week I reviewed a 991.2 911 Turbo S, but let me tell you what, the 992, so much better, so many improvements made by Porsche. Absolutely love this vehicle, and I just want to show you guys and review it for you today. Anyways, let's jump right into it. All righty, moving on to the exterior of the 911 Carrera S. I want to start off with the color. This is Dolomite Silver Metallic. It's a great looking color. Personally, I'm a bigger fan of GT Silver Metallic. This is still a great looking color for the 911 Carrera S. Next, moving on to the headlights. These headlights are part of the Porsche dynamic lighting system, and they look great. I like how they have that claw look that shows up at night when you're driving behind someone. You also have these massive vents on the front of the car as well that feed air around the wheels, improve aerodynamic efficiency, and push the air out going this way. You also have the air that passes through these grills right here that feeds through radiators, which also helps with cooling for the various systems of this vehicle. And then you have the turn signal integrated with the front fascia of the car as well. Now moving on to the side, these are the RS Spider design wheels with 20-inch rims in the front, 21-inch rims in the rear. Just like the Turbo S for the 991.2 generation, this has its fuel tank up front because there's really no room to stick it in the back. Another cool thing is with the door handles. When you go to unlock or lock your car, when the car is locked, the door handles are stowed away like this. But when you unlock the car, the handles pop out like this, and you just pull them open. It helps the car look more seamless on the sides. Unlike the 991.2 generation, which really ticked me off, is this has keyless entry, and that Turbo S I reviewed didn't, and it really drove me crazy, especially moving equipment around and everything. Not being able to go up to the car and do this, and the car just unlock, that scared me for a second. But this being the way it is, definitely like it a lot more. And moving on to the rear of the 992 911 Carrera S, you will see a great change from the Turbo S I did review, and this has basically been going on since 2020 and for the 2021 model years for the cars. You will see this massive light bar going around the rear of the car. I did say they did keep some of the taillight design from the 991 model, because you do have upper and lower portion of the taillight in the rear. You also have these massive exhaust pipes in the back. Unlike having the 4 of them in the 911 Turbo S, this has the 2 large ones. This also comes equipped with the Porsche active exhaust system, and I will show you what the exhaust sounds like right now. But one thing about the 911 that never changed is the actual body design of the car. It has the same silhouette as 911s have for many generations, and it's no different for the 992. Alrighty, moving on to the interior of the 911 Carrera S. One of the biggest differences between the 992 generation and the 991.2 generation is the interior of the car, namely the infotainment screen, the gauge cluster, the center control stack. The steering wheel looks sort of the same. It's a little different though. And a lot of the interior components of this car make the inside of the 911 now look more futuristic and up to date compared to the last one, the last generation, which started to fall behind some of its competitors. Now moving into the 992 generation 911, I will say this is one of the best interiors I've ever been in any car that I've ever reviewed. Much better than the 991.2. So starting with the steering wheel in the gauge cluster, the gauge cluster is completely new. You have a central analog tachometer, and then you have 2 screens on the outside. The screens are controlled by the dial on the right side of the steering wheel and can be switched between for editing using this button to the right of the dial. And you can switch between things like your navigation, switch things between things like your music, your trip information, vehicle information, your drive modes. And if you switch to the other screen, you can check your lane keep assist and your speed limit and things like that. The steering wheel has also undergone some changes. There are more buttons on the steering wheel now, mainly to control the gauge cluster screens in the center. You still have the aluminum shift paddles, but this one is equipped with the lane keeping assist and the adaptive cruise control. And the adaptive cruise control is controlled on the cruise control stock that comes off the bottom left of the steering wheel. And you also have a new drive mode dial compared to the 991.2 generation. Like the 991.2 generation, you still have your key on the left side of the steering wheel, except this time you don't have to actually stick your key in there. It's just a little thing you turn and that turns on the car. Moving on to the center, you do have a new infotainment screen. The infotainment screen, this is one of the best infotainment systems I've ever used. It has plenty of features in it. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It has a great navigation system built in here. You could change a lot of the car settings in here. There is some cool, quirky features about this though. And if you go to your apps, you can actually use the 911 to find hotels, to find gas stations, to find parking, and to find restaurants. And you can even have it use Google Search if it's connected to the Wi-Fi or the cellular connection through your phone. And that's all through Porsche Connect. This is equipped with the Bose audio system, which sounds really good. It's not as great as the Burmester high-end surround system, but the Bose audio system is still good as well. And moving on to these switches. So we have some optional switches here. You have a front axle lifter system. You have the active exhaust, and then you have a suspension tuner button. And in between those, you have your hazard and your traction control off and on switch. And below that, you have your center control stack. Now, this is one of the biggest controversial things about the 992 generation is the gear selector here. It used to be a big lever that you would pull. The lever was fine. Now it kind of looks like a face shaver razor here, and it's not bad look. I will say, if you get this car with a manual transmission, I like the way the manual looks, but I don't hate the way this gear selector in the center looks at all. You also have your sunroof controls right here. Now what's crazy is this is literally just a roof panel. Most cars, when you get a retractable sunroof, it's a piece of glass that can be covered. This is literally just a body panel that moves back and forth. There's no glass. Getting the glass is a separate option on this car. So if you open it, you literally have to open the entire thing to see the sky. You can't just open a cover that lets you see through glass. You have to literally, it electronically moves the entire roof body panel. You have heated and cooled seats here, and unlike the 991.2 911, it had the worst cup holder situation in the world. They were flimsy, and then you had this little storage compartment down here that barely could hold anything, maybe coins. But now they gave you a little cup holder down here under the climate control section. Now, if you press this button on the cup holder actually pops out, and you can use it for a storage space, which can fit stuff like your phone. But you can also just pop the cup holder back in there and use it for a cup holder. Now, as for practicality, the center console, again, isn't massive at all. It's a little bigger than the 991.2 center console, and in here you get two USB-A's, SD card, and a SIM slot. And then you have your glove box, which is bigger than the 911 991.2 as well. And as for some of the finishings in here, lots of leather, feels very high quality and premium everywhere. You barely find any plastics, and you have this piano black trim here in the center. And then you have like this aluminum mesh that goes in certain places on the car to just, top off everything. Feels really good as well, really high quality and premium. You also have your passenger cup holder on the passenger side as well. It feels a lot less flimsy than the one in the 991.2 911 did. You also have the Carrera S name embossed into the center console, and you have the Porsche crest embossed into the headrest of the seats. Pretty cool. And unlike the 991.2 911, I'm actually going to attempt to sit in the back of this car. I know I'm probably going to regret it and probably won't be able to get out, but let's give it a try. All right, I'm going to attempt to get into the back of the 911 now, which all you do is have to move the seat forward. Now, just step over here. Let's move some stuff out of the way. Oy. Zero headroom. And the seats are not that comfortable back here. But in reality, who sits back here in these things? One thing that is cool is you can actually lower the seat by pulling on this handle up here to, come down. You can lower the seats for more storage space back here. I'm not going to do it for the seat I'm in right now because that would hurt, but you can do it for both of these seats to lower the seats in here. And now to get out of the 911. Okay. Yeah. I'm not doing that again. Alrighty, moving on to the engine of the 911 Carrera S. This is a twin turbo flat six, making 443 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque. And as you see, you can't see any of that. You can only see the cooling fans on the back. And in fact, I believe you can see less of the engine than you were able to in the 991.2 generation. It's crazy. It's because the engine literally sits over the rear axle of the car, so there's just no way you'd be able to see it anyways. It actually sits more under where this parcel shelf is on the interior of the car. It makes for listening to the engine inside the car great, but looking at the engine on the exterior of the car, not so much. This is also mated to the 8-speed PDK automatic transmission that was optional with this car, and the transmission is pretty great, and I will explain it all when we get into the driving portion of this video.
This video wouldn't be possible without our friends at Godden Porsche. Thank you guys for being so supportive in the growth of this channel and for being a great part of the Godden family.
Alrighty, so driving the 992 911 Carrera S. I will say it's not as fast as the 911 Turbo S that I drove, even last generation's 991.2. Car and Driver measured this car to get about a 0 to 60 of 3 seconds. And Porsche claimed 3.5, I believe. So Porsche is notorious for claiming higher 0 to 60 times and higher performance times than what the reality is. They usually understate their power and over-deliver on performance. It's awesome. Just no exception. Oh my gosh. Couple things. You could daily drive a 911 Carrera S easily. It's not the most comfortable in the world. The suspension is pretty bumpy. I do agree. I have the suspension in its sport setting right now, but even with the Porsche dynamic chassis control disabled, I will still say that this car can be a bit bumpy, and you do feel a lot of the road. Now, that's not to say I wouldn't buy this car over anything, many other cars. What's great about this is that it's much cheaper than the 911 Turbo S, yet it delivers a significant amount of performance compared to many other sports cars out there. And granted, this thing still starts at $117,000 brand new, but it's not so slow compared to the 911 Turbo S that the Carrera S would just be completely out of the picture. No, this is a still great car. The rear-wheel drive makes this so much fun. Like, having to control this thing is just a blast versus the 911 Turbo S being a all-wheel drive vehicle. It's not as engaging. I feel like this is a more engaging car. The 911 Turbo S is just extremely fast. Still has great steering. I would say the steering in the 911 Turbo S is a little tighter and more sportier than this is, but this is the Carrera S, so that makes a little sense. But steering is still wonderful. Throttle response is absolutely great too, and the transmission, like I'll always say, the PDK is one of the best automatic transmissions ever put in a car. Feels absolutely great, lightning quick shifts, very responsive, and basically knows what you want to do. Now, you guys can probably hear the exhaust. This has the dynamic exhaust system that Porsche allows you to option onto their vehicles, and it sounds absolutely amazing. And to hear it wind down, oh my gosh, it's great. The Carrera S is an amazing car. Now, the twin turbo setup, now with every 911 except for the GT3 being turbocharged, I like the turbocharged setup. It makes the cars faster. Does it help exhaust noise? Absolutely not. It muffles exhaust noise so much. Naturally aspirated cars are always going to sound better, but you cannot beat that acceleration. And that exhaust note isn't actually that bad. I like it. I quite enjoy that exhaust note, actually. And it just makes you smile and so happy, and it burbles and it pops on when it's revving down and on up or on downshifts. It just sounds so great. And when you want this car to actually calm down, it does a decent job at calming down and being just a normal car. But I'm a car reviewer. I don't get in a Porsche to go slow and, be slow about it. I get in a Porsche to go fast. Ho ho ho! Oh my! 4,000 RPMs. Previous owner had the launch control set to 4,000. Perfectly fine. Gosh, why is the Mustang the only one that has a built-in 0 to 60 timer? It doesn't make sense. Why do I have to go spend $200-300 on a V-Box? Just include the 0 to 60 timer in the car. That had to be less than 3.5 seconds. Oh, that was definitely. I mean, the 911 Turbo S still faster than that, but that was less than 3.5 seconds. That had to be less than 3.2 seconds. Holy crap. That was insane. Alrighty, let's move on to the conclusion. Alrighty guys, this has been a review of the 911 Carrera S for the 992 generation. If you liked the video, go ahead and smash that like button down below. And if you want to see more from us, go ahead and subscribe. And I will link the 991.2 Turbo S review in the description below and put a calling card up at the top for you to click on. I will see you all in the next video.